at Edwards Apple Orchard in Poplar Grove, Illinois, and we're visiting with Andy Smith, who's the general manager of the orchard. In school, we learn a lot about how apples grow, so let's take a first-hand look at how they actually grow at an orchard. We're standing next to some brand new baby trees. Andy's going to tell us about when they were planted and maybe how old these are and how they came to be planted at their orchard. Tell us some answers.
These trees are 2 years old, so we buy them from a nursery and they're shipped to us, and then we are able to put them in the ground. So these trees we planted just a few months ago in late May when the ground was warm enough to help the trees grow. As soon as we plant the trees, we come by and cut off all of the little branches on the trees so we can start to regrow them in a way that we think is best. The next thing we do is we build a trellis system around the tree. This is really, really important because as these trees grow, they're going to put on a lot of apples. And those apples are really heavy, so the trees need something to support them so they don't fall over. So this trellis system is a pole and a wire, and as these trees get bigger and put on more apples, this will help support the tree and support all the weight from those apples.
So I'm a little confused, Andy. I thought when I cut open an apple, I see apple seeds, but you're telling me you didn't plant a seed, you just planted a tree that was already growing?
So our trees are not grown from seeds. It's a little complicated, but those seeds inside the apple are not variety specific, which means if you plant one of those seeds from, say, a Honeycrisp apple, you will not necessarily get a Honeycrisp apple tree. The only way to get a specific variety of apple is to use something called scion wood. So that's bud wood, and inside this piece of wood are all the genetic makeups that are responsible for a specific type of apple. So instead of planting a Honeycrisp seed in the ground and growing a Honeycrisp tree, what we do is we cut some of the wood off of a Honeycrisp tree and graft. So graft is just a fancy word of basically gluing two pieces of wood together. So we graft those two pieces of wood together to grow a variety specific or a Honeycrisp tree. So you can't plant a specific apple tree from a seed. It has to be from the wood.
So how old do you think this size of a tree is?
So this tree right here is just 2 years old. It's cut and budded and grown for 1 year, and then it's shipped to us. So this is considered its second leaf. It's the second time that leaves have shot out of the tree, and that's how we measure the age of trees. This tree right here, we hope could live for up to 25 years, and as it gets older, it will produce more and more apples until about the fourth year when we will have a full crop. From 4 years and older, we should be able to get a full crop of apples on one of these little trees.
Very interesting. So about how many trees do you plant every year?
Right now, we plant around 5,000 trees a year. We have 50,000 trees on our property on 55 acres of ground. So right now we're planting at an average of 1,200 trees per acre. And we're finding really great new varieties with good texture and flavors and trying to plant the absolute best variety we can.
So when we go to an apple orchard, sometimes we see that there's apples of different sizes and different colors. So those are what varieties are. Some of us love green apples, some of us love red apples, some of us like apples with speckles on them, and they have all kinds of interesting names of those apples. So we're going to take a look at some other trees that are a little older than these trees, and let's talk with Andy about what they have to do during the summertime before the apples are on the trees. So let's take a look at these tall trees, Andy. I see that we've got some little tiny apples growing on here. Where'd they go? Right there. So tell me about what had to happen before we got the apples on here.
So this spring, we had a beautiful white bloom all through the orchard. So covering these trees were millions of little white flowers. And every single one of those flowers are important because each one has the opportunity to become an apple. But before that little flower becomes an apple, something really important needs to happen. It needs to pollinate. And what do we use to pollinate all of our apples here in the orchard? Do you know, Kaden?
The bees?
The bees, exactly. So we bring in honeybees and they pollinate all of those flowers throughout the orchard. And after one of those flowers are pollinated, it becomes an apple. When the flowers come on these apples, 6 different flowers sprout from each one, with one flower right in the center called the king bloom. So we want each one of those to pollinate, and then we'll come by and we'll thin off, or we'll take some of those apples off, because if a tree has a smaller amount of apples on it, those apples will grow bigger. So each one of those flowers will eventually become an apple, and as the summer goes on, those apples will grow bigger and bigger.
So you tell me you have a lot of trees here. So how many bees do you need to be at the orchard at one time if everything's blooming?
So we bring in somewhere around 20 pallets of bees. Each one of those pallets contains 4 hives, and each one of those hives has over 10,000 bees. So during the spring, the sky is flooded with all of these wonderful, wonderful bees that are pollinating each and every one of these flowers. Now, some people might be kind of scared because of all of those bees in the orchard, but those honeybees are working so hard that they don't mind having any humans around at all.
Do you keep the bees at the orchard all year round, or do other beekeepers bring the bees to you?
So we have some very special bee guys that bring all of the bees to stay at our orchard for 2 to 3 weeks during the spring. The bees are trucked in on the back of an open truck, and they stay here while all of these apple trees are blooming. As soon as those petals fall off, then the bees are sent back.
Excellent. We've seen today that they plant new trees every year, that every year the tree grows bigger, that they don't just wait around for fall to do all the work. They have to work all year round with the trees. We're here visiting right now in June, and I think we're going to come back again probably in August, and we'll check back and see how much these tiny little apples have grown. We made another trip back to Edwards Orchard. This time we're here in early August, and we've certainly seen a lot of changes happen on these trees since we were here a couple of months ago. On our last trip, the apples were just starting to grow, and Andy and Caden Smith are joining me again today. And Andy, tell me what's all happened with these apples since we were here last. They're huge now.
Yeah, absolutely. So the last time you were here was just after bloom, so those apples just started to form, and they were just little bitty things. And now, after a lot of rain and sunshine and warm nights, all of our apples have started to grow. So we need a couple things to make these apples grow really big. Of course, all plants need sunlight and rain, and the apples are no different.
Great. And it seems like this summer our weather's been pretty cooperative. Has it worked well for you guys too?
It really has. So we've had enough rain where we haven't had to turn on our irrigation. We haven't had to water the trees, and we've had some really warm days that really helps the apples.
And I think you told me that when fall starts approaching, you want those cool nights. How does that help our apples?
Absolutely. So we're really looking for cool nights to convert all of the starch that's in these apples. Those cooler temperatures converts those starches into sugar. So cooler nights means a sweeter apple.
Okay, well, we certainly love those yummy apples. Caden, can you tell us what kind of apples we're looking at today?
We're looking at Zestar.
And are Zestars one of the first apples that are ready in the orchard?
Yes.
Okay.
I eat a lot of them.
You do. Are you the official tester?
Sort of.
Sort of. Okay. Why don't you pick one of those for us today? Let's see how they're tasting today. What do you think?
They're really, really good.
They're really good. Now, I noticed you took a bite out of the red side of the apple. Can we look at the other side? What's the other side? It's still green. Is that going to be a little bit more sour on that side? A little bit. So as the months go on here, or the next few weeks, when you guys are going to open here in a few weeks, so people can come out and pick these apples. Will it get sweeter between now and the end of the month? You think so? Yeah, I think so too. So, Caden, I know you're like 8 years old now, right? Going to second grade, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what is the best part of living on an orchard? What's the coolest part?
Probably learning about the apples.
Oh, great. So, your dad manages all these apples. And so, can you tell me like one cool thing that you learned working here this summer?
Summer pruning.
Summer pruning. Awesome. And pruning is when you have to cut back the extra branches? Or thinning them out so we get nice big apples, right? Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having us out. We hope that a lot of the students are able to go visit an orchard this fall, maybe pick some apples someplace. But even if you can't, when you're in the grocery store and your parent or family member buys apples, remember that they all started in an orchard someplace with a farm family that's working really hard to grow them for you. See you next time.